There are a lot of different topics that could be argued from a philosophical standpoint. Some of the more conservative topics to come up into mainstream debates include abortion, capital punishment, and the legalization of marijuana. Without realizing what I was about to get myself into, I chose to ask the question, who am I? This led me down the rabbit hole of the mind-brain identity theory. Now, what is the mind-brain identity theory? Its thesis pretty much says that the mind is identical to states of the brain. It's a very popular version of materialism, which materialism is everything we know, everything that is real is material. The mind-body interaction, according to materialists, is just a complicated series of physical events. Descartes said, I can imagine my mind without my body. Being material is not part of the mind's essence. And what this means is we can imagine the mind apart from the body. Like you can imagine yourself somewhere else. You then realize that maybe they can't be the same thing. Some key things to know before I get into this that's going to help with explaining further is the brain. Everyone knows that pink gooey substance that's in your head is the physical substance. It controls your movement, your emotions, your actions, and whatever else. The mind, it's often referred to as consciousness. It's a person's morality, reasoning, and understanding. Dualism, it's a theory that reality consists of two irreducible elements or entities, the material, which is the physical, and the immaterial, which is the spiritual. Epiphenomenalism is the view that the mind doesn't have any kind of casual interaction with the physical world. Physical states can cause other physical states or mental states, but mental states cannot cause physical states. The mind is a byproduct of the brain. Functional kinds is a kind of thing that is defined in terms of its function, role, or job, not what it's made out of. So some examples of a functional kind could be a table. What makes a table a table? It's got 4 legs. You set stuff on it. It may not have 4 legs. It could just be a cardboard box that you set stuff on. But the act of setting something on something makes it a table. Another example would be teachers. To be a teacher, all you have to do is fill whatever role or do whatever job that you're getting paid to do. Some more key terms are physicalism, which is the thesis that everything is physical, everything is made up of matter, and therefore it takes up space. Functionalism is the theory that what it is to be a particular mental state is to be in a functional state, which can be specified in terms of input and output or cause and effect. If you can do the job, then you are the mental state. An example of this would be a vending machine. Money is the input, while snacks are the output. So all you have to do in order to be a vending machine is to take money and give out snacks. Behaviorism is the thesis that mental concepts can be explained in terms of behavioral concepts. Examples that are objecting the identity theory are Putnam's multiple realizability argument, epiphenomenalism, dualism, John Searle's The Rediscovery of the Mind, UT Place's Is Consciousness a Brain Process, David Chalmers' Philosophical Zombies, and Thomas Nagel's What Is It Like to Be a Bat? Example, objecting the identity theory that I want to get into is Putnam's argument and the octopus. So the main point of this long argument is the mind-brain identity theory cannot be correct because mental states, such as pain, are multiply realizable. Now, what is multiple realizability? It's when there are many different physical systems that can be of that kind. The stuff that makes an object real. An example of this would be a cat. What is it to be a cat? You've got all the digestive system, you've got neurons, you've got atoms, which are all different kinds of physical systems that make it what it is. Now, mental states are multi-realizable. How? This is where he uses the octopus. The octopus's brain, which we're going to call brain O, is completely differently made up than a human brain, which is called brain B. That's what we're going to call it. Now, if pain for us is a process, is brain process B. So human brain, brain process B, you get hurt, ouch. You feel that sensation of pain. Now, since the octopus is brain state O, it's made up completely different, it can never be in brain state B, which means it can never feel what we feel. So if octopuses can never be in brain state B, then they shouldn't be able to feel pain, right? But they do. In Thomas Nagel's What It Is Like to Be a Bat, it's an attack on physicalism, since there is no science on consciousness. Now, what is consciousness? According to Nagel, an organism has conscious mental states if and only if there is something that it is like to be that organism, something it is like for that organism. An example of this would be, imagine if you're 3 inches tall. You know, you're running around, everything's towering over you, you see a little ant, it's gonna kill you. It's about as big as you are, almost. Not really, I mean, an ant's not that big, but you get my point. You can do this because you have experience, because you have consciousness. Now imagine being a tree stump. You may think you can. You know, you close your eyes, it's dark, oh, it's what it's like for a stump to be outside at nighttime. You open your eyes, it's daylight, oh, that must be what it's like for a stump to be out in the daytime. But you can't. You can't imagine what that's like. There is no experience. You yourself could never get into the headspace of what it is to be that stump. This is where bats come in. Bats have echolocation. Humans don't. So can we imagine or understand what it's like to use echolocation? According to Nagel, no, we can't. Whatever, he goes on to say, whatever may be the status of facts about what it is like to be a human being, a bat, or a Martian, these appear to be facts that embody a particular point of view. Now, what does this mean? It means that there are facts that can only be known by getting into a particular subjective perspective. There are certain stuff that you can only know by experiencing it. The crucial point to his paper: every subjective phenomenon is essentially connected with a single point of view, and it seems inevitable that an object of physical theory will abandon that point of view. Now, what this means is that a physicalist could never fully explain facts about experience, facts about consciousness. Why? Because physicalist theories, by definition, get away from consciousness. It doesn't exist to them. It's not physical. It's not material. He says, is consciousness a brain process? He places the mental state into 3 categories. Your cognitive, which is your thinking, knowing, believing, understanding, remembering, all that good stuff. Your volitional, I probably just butchered that pronunciation, but it's your will, your wanting, and your intending. And then the unavoidable, which is your inner processing, the consciousness, your experience, sensations, and mental imagery. This is what he's going to use to go against the identity theory. He says that the identity theory is a scientific hypothesis that cannot be dismissed on logical grounds. What this means is, when people try to use logic to disprove identity theory, that it can't be different, it's the same, they try to use the is of definition. Now, what is the is of definition? It's that, for example, pain is brain process B. Pain is identical to brain process B. That's it. They're the same thing. It's interchangeable. There's nothing more. And why this won't work is because identity theory, according to him, uses is in terms of composition. Pain is made up of brain process B. David Chalmers is another pretty well-known philosopher that introduced the idea of philosophical zombies. Now, what is a philosophical zombie? It's a physical duplicate of a person, which means, it's got all the same genetic makeup, looks exactly like you, talks exactly like you, moves exactly like you, except it's lacking your conscious experience, which means the sensations you felt in life, it doesn't have those. Now, Chalmers' argument is that if it's conceivable that there are zombies, then it's metaphysically possible that there are zombies. And then if it's metaphysically possible that zombies exist, then consciousness, experience, is a non-physical thing. Consciousness cannot be identical to brain states, which is the physical things. John Searle, in the rediscovery of the mind, went into a big example on how if someone's eye's messed up, they go into surgery, they get parts replaced, it's fixed, they can see. Something else messes up in the brain. It goes in and gets replaced, whatever. And if everything gets replaced, if the entire brain gets replaced, are you still you? And if it's possible that you're still you, it can't be possible that the brain is the same thing as the mind. It just can't. They're different. Kind of get into theories and people that support the identity theory, that are physicalists. they say that the mind and the brain are the same thing. The first person I want to get into is Gilbert Ryle. And he says that Descartes made a categorical mistake when he came up with dualism. And he said in his thing, the absurdity of the official doctrine, which is Cartesian dualism, is the official doctrine. He says that minds are things, but different sorts of things from the bodies. Mental processes are causes and effects, but different sorts of causes and effects from bodily movement. Which just means that certain arrangements of physical stuff interacting and moving in a certain way is all mental stuff is. Mental stuff is just a certain way of thinking about physical stuff. He goes on to give quite a few examples. I think there was like 4 that he gave, which was the university visitor, which is the more famous of the 4. The child watching military parade, watching the different divisions go by. Spirit de corps, which is French for team spirit, and the British Constitution. Now, in the university visitor scenario, this guy visits Oxford, Cambridge, and they're all big places. They all got many things all put into this one big thing, which is the university. So this guy goes and he sees the colleges where the people live. He sees the libraries and all this good stuff. And then he asks, but where is the university? I have seen where the members of the colleges live, where the register works, where the scientists experiment, and the rest. But I have not yet seen the university. It then has to be explained to him that the university is not another collateral institution. It's just the way in which all that he's already seen is organized. The mistake that this guy makes is taking something, the university, and trying to mush it together with everything else, trying to mush it together with the little colleges that are around, the little college bars, the libraries, and whatever. Now, Ryle says that Descartes' mistake for the mind-brain dualist thing is thinking that the mind and mental events, memories, hopes, emotions, is just more stuff in addition to and in the same category as the physical stuff, your movements and everything. He goes on to say that the belief that there are polar oppositions between the mind and matter is the belief that there are terms of the same logical type. What he means is that putting the mind in the same general category as the body, like Descartes did, is the mistake. Armstrong, who's a materialist, took a more behaviorist approach to the question, which physical stuff is the mind? He says in his paper, The Nature of the Mind, that the mind was not something behind the behavior of the body. It was simply part of that physical behavior. Thought is not an inner process that behind and brings about the words I speak and write. It is my speaking and writing. The mind is not an inner arena, it is an outward act, which means, pretty simply, words and actions are just thoughts. Thoughts are just words and actions. What he does is gives dispositional behaviorism. And what this is, are tendencies to react within a certain type of behavior to correspond to stimulus. An example of this is glass. Glass has a disposition to break under pressure. And with a person under the right amount of pressure, a person experiencing anger has the disposition to behave angrily, hitting, yelling, all that good stuff that a person does when they get mad. So he pretty much says that mental states, such as anger, are just physical states. their outward extensions. And this brings me to my next person. Princess Elizabeth against Descartes' dualism. And this is probably one of the more famous attacks on his dualism. And she had a problem with mental causation. In a letter to him back in May of 1643, I think, she says, "For the determination of movements seem always to come about from the moving body's being propelled, to depend on the kind of impulse it gets from what sets it in motion, or again, on the nature and shape of these latter things' surface. Now the first two conditions involve contacts, and the third involves the impelling thing has extensions, but you utterly exclude extensions from your notion of soul, and contact seems to me incompatible with the things being immaterial." So in that little thing, he says there's only so many ways something can move. It moves itself, self-propulsion, it gets pushed. Those are all contact. Those are both contact. And then the third, the nature and shape of thing doing the pushing, which is the extension. This says if the mind isn't a physical object, then it cannot make contact with physical space. See, then goes on to say in these letters, "And I must confess that I could be more readily allowed that the soul has matter and extension than that an immaterial being has the capacity of moving a body and being affected by it." Which she kind of gives Descartes an out, explaining that, and she suggests that it's more plausible that the mind is just a material extension of the body, and it has to take up some sort of space to interact with everything. The immaterial cannot make contact with the material. Now, my summary and how I feel about the whole identity theory is it raises the question of who a person is. If the theory proves to be true, you are nothing more than your physical substance. That's it. That's everything. That's all there is. There's nothing more. However, upon further reflection and personal belief, I am my mind, I am my consciousness, my experiences residing in a physical, replaceable body. Replaceable being the key word here. I can't be replaced. My parts can. My mind cannot be replaced. Therefore, they are two separate things. Even though a brain controls the emotions you produce and the actions you take, thought could not have been a thought without a mind there to question the morality, the reason, and the understanding behind the actions that are about to happen. My mind is separate. I don't have a question about that. Yet I cannot exist without both parts. I cannot be me without both the physical and the immaterial.